educators of Virginia. Welcome to today's episode with Nathan Hammond, where we will explore the mindset of one innovator and the entrepreneurial spirit that led him to pursue the creation of eHall Pass and Flex Time Manager. Nathan is the creator and founder of EduSpire Solutions, a former German teacher, and one of the most interesting people I've met in the past several years. I'm thrilled to be able to sit down with Nathan, who is tuning in from Ukraine to record this episode. We are all in for a treat. Nathan, welcome. How are you?
So our signal will be a little broken every now and again, so I may not always get the questions, but I'll do my best. My name is Nathan Hammond, and thanks, Chris, for the introduction. This is a very unusual setup. We did not force this at all. Chris asked me about setting up an interview time, and I mentioned that I was traveling, and we got to talking a little bit, and I am in Ukraine. My story is I adopted twin daughters when they were almost 16 from the far western region of Ukraine. We were scheduled to attend her legal wedding ceremony, the one daughter, and there were 3 or 4 of us that were going, and we got to the airport on Thursday, the Thursday that the war broke out, and we didn't know it yet, and the airport made an announcement, with Nathan Hammond and a couple of other Hammonds. Would you please come to the counter? And we came to the counter, and they said the airspace is closed. You can fly to Warsaw, Poland. That's where we were scheduled to fly to, and then from there to Lviv, which everybody knows now where that is. So they canceled the flight. So we turned around and went home, and we got home at about 3 in the morning. And then when I woke up at 7 or 8, my daughter was in Ukraine. So that was the one who was getting married. Her husband wanted, they're sort of in between. They had the sort of a church wedding, and they were trying to get the legal wedding. So I called her at that point her half husband, which is sort of just my funny term. But he wanted her out, just like everybody else who was trying to flee, because at that point we didn't know what it was like. And so I spent the next 2 days trying to make connections for her, found somebody in Slovakia who could meet her at the border at midnight. I found somebody here in the city that she was in to help her get some money because she was caught unprepared. Well, not unprepared, who prepares for war, but her US card didn't work. So she couldn't withdraw money, and she figured if she was fleeing, she should at least have some cash, which was smart. And in the end, she didn't need cash because we were able to arrange everything for her. And then she had somebody take her from the border the next morning. That person was able to put her on a train, and then we had another friend of ours meet. The first one was a friend of a friend. The second one was a friend of my mom's. Meet her in Bratislava, and he had her took her to his family. He himself, actually, interesting story, had escaped Slovakia during the Soviet Union during the 50s, and he was smuggled out in a VW van. So he was very familiar with refugee and trying to get people out.
Oh my goodness!
So anyway, then he took her the next morning to the airport, and I was trying to get a train ticket, a flight for her out of Vienna. And he was able to put her on the plane, and she was home Sunday afternoon. So that was whatever that was, a 2-day trek to try and get her out. So that then our family we were already, we have just an interest in Ukraine because of our family connection with the adoptions, and then things in the West sort of settled down. There have been no bombings in this province. So after about 2 or 3 weeks, I started wanting to, and my family had been talking about, hey, we want to help. And so we thought maybe we would come back. We would come here to help in May when the kids, my 2 daughters, the other one who's adopted from Ukraine, and the one who got married, that they might both go over and help because they're kind of gold. They can speak Ukrainian and English, which helps any refugee kind of work that you're doing. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to understand what the needs are of people who are coming out. And then I have 2 other teenage boys and another daughter, and we sort of decided that we would do a family trip in May and serve for 2 weeks with some kind of group that was already working and come alongside them. I call our family kind of a plug and play group, because we have translators, we have a counselor, we've got people who like to just serve and help. So yeah. So then in the process of doing that, I realized, well, there were some other needs that came up, something with in my church. They were supporting some of the work here in the western part of Ukraine. And I ended up talking to my daughter and talking to my wife and said, hey, if we went, maybe I should go early and find something for us to do. And she had found something on Facebook almost at the same time. And so I connected with this organization, and turned out my daughter, who had just left Ukraine, she felt like, yes, she needed to go back to get that legal marriage, because she was in limbo. She couldn't do anything for her husband. She couldn't get him out because she didn't have the legal document. He can't leave because everybody knows, males can't leave the country, and it'll take a while anyway. She's not going to be able to get him out right away. But without that legal document, nothing would be able to move forward. So it made sense for her. And then she agreed to volunteer. So we flew into Romania, and we're working with an organization in Romania, and are going to be working with refugees there. But it just happened to be that her city was only 4 hours away from where we flew into in Romania. So we yesterday, 2 days, yesterday, we rented a car, drove it to the border, parked it, and then we walked across the border with a suitcase and a sports bag. And we found a border that was completely empty. And we didn't find it. It's just nobody goes from Romania to that. The border that we crossed is just not a very commonly needed border crossing. So it was a very, the whole time we were there, we maybe saw 2 cars go through either direction. So us walking, it just seemed like a scene out of a movie. A suitcase walking this forlorn border crossing. And when we got to the other side, we had my daughter had a friend pick us up and drove us into the town. And then so that's a long introduction. I'm sorry, but yeah. So I have a picture too. Let me just share that, maybe because it might help a little bit here. This is just a picture of the border crossing. You can see how empty it is here. I think you can see my cursor. And then the picture here is a friend of ours and my daughter, and we were just walking across here. And then this is the border crossing from the other direction. You're not really supposed to take pictures, but I had a really strong zoom, so it didn't really bother them. And then my daughter got married. That happened today, so I figured I'd show that too. Proud papa. So this is my daughter and her husband. And it was so, the local office here was just so overwhelmed with people that they had to sign their document out in the hallway. And there were still crowds of people in that hallway. Everybody's trying to get legal documents or relief money or other things that they need. And it was pretty amazing that it worked as smoothly as it did. And here they are in front of town hall. You can see that they're holding their document that they desperately wanted and needed and are happy to have. And then I connected with some of the relief work that's going on here in this town. So this is a picture of a small warehouse, and I helped for the last 2 or 3 hours sorting all the relief supplies that came in from Italy and from other places, and we're cataloging them and writing them down on a list so that they can be distributed appropriately. And I'm actually sitting in one of those refugee centers right now. I'm in the cafeteria, so it's a little noisy. But I talked to 2 people here, just asked where they came from. And one of them said near Mariupol, and the other one is from like near Donetsk. Obviously, I think people realize that those are the areas that are heaviest under fire, and so they have it's a 20-hour trip, so it's almost like a hurricane's in Florida and I'm in Pennsylvania. That's not even 20 hours. So I don't know, Florida to maybe Connecticut or whatever. It's that far apart. That's how long they traveled, and it's still in the same country. Just to give you a little bit of perspective. Yeah. So, and then this is just a picture of this makeshift refugee center that a friend of ours is setting up here in Mukachevo, and this is the far western town here in Ukraine. He's got about, I think he helped create 500 beds for people. And so his small church of 60 grew to, just really help a whole lot of people. So, and we're trying to see what we can do there. So that's my long introduction. So nothing to do with education necessarily, but an education of a different kind, I suppose. So
yeah, for sure. No, Nathan, thank you so much for sharing. I just there's so much there, and so many things that I would love to ask about. And really, I know you said that it's a province that's not really getting bombed right now, and the shelling is not happening that far west. And so, I mean, you're describing the border crossing, describing how busy it is, and trying to get the documentation or trying to get the relief aid, and churches standing up what you call makeshift refugee spots, and it actually looked like it was pretty squared away. So just an incredible story, Nathan. I'm overwhelmed right now. I don't have the words, and hopefully our listeners who were just really hearing you and listening to you and what's really going on, and your willingness to still be in Ukraine right now and to sit down to talk education and to talk about EduSpire and eHall Pass and Flex Time Manager, the things that kind of brought us together. Right. But I just thank you for sharing and just really opening up a chapter in your life and what's going on to give us a peek behind what you have going on right now. So I just appreciate that. And of course, I appreciate the time that you're spending with me, especially given that you're in you're in Ukraine right now. I'm just fascinated by that. So thank you for sharing that. And also, I think hopefully that's kind of a precursor to how interesting and compelling your story is, because you're coming into this space with a great story. And it's almost like your life's history is just a great and compelling story. I was completely captivated, amazed, and inspired when we touched base last week to kind of prepare for this episode. But if we can, let's talk about your story, kind of post-classroom teacher, and really what was on your mind when you decided to leave the classroom.
Right. So actually, I don't know if I ever really decided to leave the classroom. It kind of happened. I had colleagues for about maybe almost 2 years ask me, hey, how much longer are you going to continue to teach? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I love what I'm doing. And they're like, yeah, right. You're going to leave. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So the part of my story is, when you come to a point in your life where you're thinking about, and some people in the audience, and I'm sure are maybe have been in this place before too, where they came to a point where they completely changed careers. Maybe they changed into education, or they were changing something to leave education, and they're still interested or in a different role. But it is disruptive to the way that you think about your life and the way you think about yourself, and you wonder, will it be a good fit if I shift so dramatically into something else? So I was a German teacher and an ESL teacher, and got very involved in technology early on, and found myself doing professional development for language teachers, and that grew into professional development for educators more broadly. And I found that really jazzed me up. I really found I found that providing PD was my PD. It was what energized me. It's what helped me be more effective in the classroom. And so I did that I wanted to do that as much as I could. In fact, I would take a half day off work to go into a classroom closet and do a webinar for, another school district somewhere else who needed some expert. I think it was Moodle at the time, and I knew world language. I combined world language and Moodle, which is like a learning management system, which many people know. But that was how I just loved what I did. I loved sharing. And of course, it was thrilling to get paid a little bit, too, but probably didn't compensate me for the half day. It wasn't. I don't know. You don't make a lot of money in PD typically, unless you're like a keynote speaker or something like that, and you can do that regularly. But I started 2 companies while teaching, and the first one was truly by accident. I just was doing PD. It was successful. We created a grad course on integrating technology into the classroom. We had about 100 teachers that attended, and then that we wanted to grow that into to do it in more places. When we tried to do that, we were told, hey, you need to find a different, university partner, because the one that we were with was just didn't work. They weren't able to do it regionally different places. So that led to me finding a university partner that already had a department for working with professional development for authors and for other people who had some kind of an education platform or some kind of content that they wanted to share. And so once that happened, we were able to create, we eventually grew to creating about 60 graduate level courses for teachers, all in ed tech space. And then we found a university partner that created a master's in ed tech. And so we have about 13,000 teachers that took courses, not, just from teachers that we found. So we started headhunting creative teachers who could really authentically talk about how they're using tech in the classroom without stressing out about the syllabus, right? They could just kind of sit down and jot down their syllabus from their head, from what they were doing. That's what we were looking for, people who just could do that. So that was the first thing that led to my superintendent's sort of, I got on their radar for some of the professional development I was doing and some of the unusual things, and had just a really great leadership team. So, in terms of any ASCD, any administrator that might be listening, there are some things that my administration team did really well. One of them was they created a culture of failing forward. They used that term, and they really wanted people to stick their neck out, to try different things. And they would announce, hey, we're going to try this. This may not work, but we're supporting this teacher. And people kind of knew that. Older timers, or whatever you want to call it, more experienced teachers who had been through other environments maybe were more skeptical, but it's that environment really suited me anyway. I was doing this kind of thing, as from what I said about professional development. I was trying to do fresh things, new things. Just to kind of date myself, I took one of the first cell phone PD things I'd found was Google Voice, and I took it to my principal. It was like 2005, and I said, hey, I want to use voice recordings in my German language classroom. And he's like, how does that work? So I said, hey, call this number. Here's what you do. And when he was done, he's like, when the short demo was done, he's like, okay, this is a little bit ahead of our time, but we're not quite ready for that. But go ahead, we'll see where it goes. That led then into in 2015 or 14, I guess, 2014. Then we started a software. I started the software. I had some software ideas, some things that I wanted to help the school with. And so my superintendent then moved me out of the classroom. He had that conversation with me. He was one of the people that said, hey, how much longer are you going to continue to teach? And I found it. I went to him wanting to give me some time off to go spend with other language teachers, because I found myself in an inauthentic position, or in an untenable position, where I couldn't authentically grow my students, because my mind was distracted by some of the business, the growth of the education side of things, and then some of the interest that I had in starting software. But my superintendent kind of was already 2 steps ahead of me, and he sort of created a new position for me. And my immediate reaction was, no, I'm not interested in some other idea. I can only handle so much, and I'm not interested in career path change is not in my interest, or not. It wasn't on my horizon at all. But by the end of the weekend, I could think of nothing else but the position that he was creating, and he didn't know exactly what it was. And I was a little intimidated, because he wanted me in a slightly different role than I ended up in. But once I was able to, there was some good timing there. My principal wanted something developed. He wanted to create a new, and this actually leads into Flex Time Manager, one of the things that you had mentioned in your introduction. My principal wanted to create an environment where kids could get a personalized learning period at the end of the day. And he was tired of organizing it in a way that was administratively convenient. For about 10 years, we had this period at the end of the day where we had in Pennsylvania, we have a 4-day, we had actually a 6-day cycle system, but 5 days of school, but 6 cycle system. And we were on a block schedule. So on day 1, students would return to period 1 for a half an hour of help. And on day 2, kids would return to period 2 for half an hour of help. And so we did that for 4 days to cover our 4 periods. And then we had a club day, and that was day 5. And we had an advisor day, day 6. Not that you need to know all those details, but it was very structured. The principal set in place who went where, and everybody went lockstep to that place. And after some work that our superintendent and the philosophy that our school board had in terms of trying to personalize and customize education, they said, we want to change that. We want to make that a student-centered period. So what he wanted was, let's have teachers put on sort of their calendar what they're offering. Like if I was a German teacher, I might offer German help for German 1 or German 2, and then but I might also then offer German club. I could offer 2 things at the same time, because my German club has an officer group and they kind of know what they want to do, and maybe they're doing something with German culture, or maybe they're doing something with whatever, and they could self-lead while I'm helping the other kids. So some teachers put on 2 things on their schedule, some people put on 1. Some teachers had a really big activity like a walking club, and so they might have 65 or 80 kids that walked we had an indoor gym. So that was the vision. Let teachers put on their calendar what they wanted to offer during this daily time, and let kids sign up for where they wanted to go. And we called this, he called it Flex Time. And so we called our software Flex Time Manager. And a funny story on that, we had a principal out in California. He said, I spent about, I don't know, it seemed like months trying to find software to support this exact philosophy that we had. He said, I searched for everything. And he told me once he found us, he said, funny, I searched every keyword I could think of. And they called it Flex Time as well. But he said, I never searched Flex Time. So he eventually went with our solution. And he said, that it's just, he told me, it's a funny story. He said, I couldn't find anything that would support this. And I never thought of the search for Flex Time Manager. And it was too easy. It was right in front of him. So, let me just jump in a little bit and explain what Flex Time Manager does beyond what I just did. But the quick 2-minute overview is, when students open up their calendar for the week, they will either see blanks for every day. If they see blanks, that means no teacher needed them for remediation. So that means, cool, they can sign up for social emotional activities. They can sign up for club activities. They can sign up for enrichment, whatever the school is offering. And in fact, some schools have even tapped into their custodial staff or either a non-traditional staff to offer things. So we know one school, for example, where the custodian is a math whiz. And so he helps the math teacher provide math support during this flex period. And, the kids love working with him because he's unique, he's different, and he's not the teacher, but he's in the room with the teacher, because, obviously there's just rules about who can work with who, and so the custodial staff, as long as they're with another teacher in that state, they were able to do that. So kids who are needed, when they open up their calendar, they go, oh, well, in their minds, probably they go, oh crap, I got algebra help on Wednesday and I got English help on Thursday, or however many days they need help. But so then they're locked in. They don't have voice and choice on those days. But the other days that are open, then they can choose where they want to go. And in our system, helps manage max capacities. It provides a great report and feedback to principals. So, if a kid is failing math, and the school can say to the parents, we have 3 math teachers in our building, and over the last 30 days, we offered whatever it was, 75 opportunities, for somebody to get math help. And your kid chose none of them. It's not, it now looks like a little bit more of a partnership, right?
Yeah.
We offer help and the kid needs to engage in help. Or some schools are have the philosophy, we don't want to make the kids get remediation. They have to self-select it. But that's fine. You now have a way, though, of holding the kid accountable and the parents accountable that, hey, your kid never self-selected us. We didn't want to force them to come because we can't force a kid to, some schools have that philosophy. Other schools say, oh, no, we're in charge of, educating a kid, and we have no problem requiring the kid to come here. We certainly don't want him playing basketball. That's, some schools so you have both sides of the spectrum. But the point is, our system supports all of that, and it's very flexible. That's why we call it Flex Time Manager. But we also do things like helping keep boyfriends and girlfriends from ending up in the same activity. So we have this thing called AB polarity, and it keeps, just extra support. We had one school that said we have too many gang problems. So we need to keep these kids, or we had guys signing up for girls' activities just to be, punks. And so we have ways of teachers can keep those kids from signing up. So there's just this great accountability, and it's very student-centered, because really the students at the center of this, but then the teachers are the next level, because they're the ones closest to the needs of the kid.
Yeah.
Right? They know what, and what's great about it is, as a teacher, if a kid fails my quiz second period and we have flex at the end of the day, I can simply sit down during my prep, assign the kid that day. I don't have to give him a pass. And that kid may have been going to basketball club, right, which is a fun activity, and now he's got to come to me for test makeup or whatever. And he gets an alert during the middle of their day, or she does, and is told, hey, you thought you were going here, but you're now coming to this remediation. And so it's really just in time remediation, which is really what you want. And some schools want to lock things in longer, right? They want to provide like a sustained remediation, 4 weeks of English help, and then 4 weeks of, or half a marking period or marking period. And they can do that as well. You can lock kids in and not give them this daily choice, or give your teachers, or you can work your way into that, right? So there's all of that capability, and that's what Flex Time Manager does. And it's really, like for example, Texas has this bill, I think it was called House Bill 4545 or some, I can't remember what the number is, but many states are requiring more accountability, and the need after the pandemic for remediation is really quite large. And so schools, without this, the best they can do is say, okay, everybody goes back to homeroom, kind of like the system I was describing earlier with my principal, and then you get a pass to go someplace. But getting a pass means that there's some stigma attached to, okay, well, everybody in the room knows that you're leaving, right? And then that you're going to a classroom where the teacher has kids sitting in homeroom, and they're doing, maybe a quiet study hall, but then kids are coming to the front of the room and you're supposed to help them. It's not as clean, or as I don't know what you want to call it. Just it's not as ideal as you would like it. Yeah. So our system says when the bell rings, everybody checks where they're going, or they know already ahead of time, because they also get an email, and they go directly to the room that they wanted to go to, or that they were assigned to, and everybody's moving. It's much more efficient. You're not going to homeroom and then moving. So all those things we thought about, we've worked with, and we've been doing that for about 6 or 7 years. So
no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, one thing that really captivated me was just your experiences as you launched from the classroom. You talked about your love for delivering PD and being a facilitator of somebody else's learning, and how that kind of filled your bucket, and it was your own PD. And you had folks asking you, when are you going to leave the classroom? Your superintendent is tapping you on the shoulder for different things. And here you are as a teacher, a German teacher in a classroom, and you're starting up businesses. I can't help but be inspired by your innovator's spirit, just what that did, not just for you as a classroom teacher and for your kids. I am most certain that your students benefited from that entrepreneurial idea, the spirit, the mindset, and through innovation. But why? So if you don't mind, I'd love to peek behind the curtain why someone like you, it's very clearly you're an innovator, very clearly that you have some entrepreneurial savvy that maybe not all of us have, but why is that spirit so important, especially right now during this moment in history?
So I think this is a great question, and I've been thinking a lot about it. So I might be all over the place here, but the first time I realized that this was an intense shift to go from education to where I had 20 years vested. I only had to go a little bit more, and I was people, once you're in that long, you don't just change that. You don't give that up very easily. Yeah. And I was aware of that. And as these businesses were becoming successful, which had I don't really take a lot of credit for the growth of them. I take credit for the ideas, but there was a team that came along, and that need for other people to come alongside me actually came out of my experience in education, because I knew I did some things really well. I had mentioned that, integrating technology, I was great at that, but I also knew that I was not getting great curricular results. Like with German, you've got 4 years of German, and there's AP German, and if you can get your kids, if you are doing well, there is this it's a what do you call it? What's the word? Objective measure of how, fairly objective measure on how successful you are at building this curriculum into your kids when you have an AP exam and you're responsible for all 4 years. That doesn't happen in other subjects, right?
Right,
English,
right.
you're rarely responsible for the 4 years of growth. Maybe in art, that department might have it, but social studies doesn't typically, neither does math or English. It's very distributed amongst. So I knew that I had maybe 1 or 2 or 3 kids take AP, and they scored not anywhere near as successful as some of my other colleagues that I had met in other professional development circles, where we were together with 40 other German teachers, and I met 3 or 4 of them that had 20 kids succeeding. So I realized that I had some blind spots, and I really wanted to work with a team. Unfortunately, how many schools have 2 or 3 German teachers?
Right, right.
Let alone have German. So it just wasn't an environment like that. But I was aware of needing other people. But the other thing is, so part of me, I remember very clearly sitting in my home and really pondering, like, what's going on with me? What's happening to me? Like, why am I not at peace just teaching? Why am I blowing things up? Why am I making them big? Why am I in this position? Who do I think I am? And I don't know, some of you might know this, it's Gallup's Strengthsfinders. It's a book, and it has 30 different strengths. And I was reading through it a second time, and I'd done it a couple of years earlier. And I reanalyzed, there's a test that you take, and it was very enlightening, because it reinforced I'm a positive person, so that came out there. It also said that I was an activator, which is creating new ideas, and I'm like, okay, that's that. And and there was one other one they sort of give you the top 3. But when I was done, I had tears in my eyes, because I'm like, oh, I am a problem solver. I've been doing this in education all my career, and I loved when school went to block for me. That was the best thing that could have happened, because now I got 2 opportunities every year to reinvent myself, right? So I was really good at 2 or 3 months of working with the kids, and the last month or 2 with the kids was just a struggle. So then the semester break would happen, and you'd get a new semester. I'm like, oh, that's why I like block scheduling. I like that restart with my kids. And so so once I realized that moving into the business world was just kind of more of the same, solving problems, I found peace in my life to make that change. And then I knew I needed somebody to come along and help me, and that's how I ended up with a partner. Because my partner actually wanted to join me before I even had my first paycheck. I'm like, well, this is, I don't really know how to process that. But in the end, I waited 2 months, and by the time the 2 months was over, my summer was over as well. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm going to self-destruct. I'm going to lose both teaching, and I'm going to lose the business, because I can't possibly do both of those. Yeah. And so now, in terms of why is it needed at this time, we need problem solvers. We need people to take responsibility for making things better. There is a culture in education that says it's not my lane, right? It's not, I'm a teacher, and I'm responsible for my room. And yes, you are. And that's what people ask me, hey, do you want to be an administrator? And my take on it was, my gifting is best suited when I can be innovative with my constituents being my students, and not another layer of administration. I didn't have, yes, you have your principal, but okay, let's face it, when you speak German, most of the time in your classroom, there's no principal that can really get in the way of that. So, again, another built-in advantage and some experience that I have. I found myself very much a loner in some ways, because there weren't lots of people to contribute or to give other ideas. So I don't know, seeking out professional development was important. But where I'm going with this is the sticking your neck out and trying to do other things. If we can build that into our kids, if we can build that confidence into our students, if we can give them examples of that and help them to understand that that really is a different way of living. In the end, I can't help myself. I was at the airport flying here to Ukraine, and the airlines that I was with had their entire computer system was down. It's only happened one other time. And I was like, okay, you guys are going to be late. They're like, no, we've done this once before, and we made it on time. And sure enough, they did. But in the process, they had lines of people. And you know how you have those poles with the, I don't know, whatever you call it.
Stanchions,
yeah. Well, a couple of people opened them up and did a shortcut because in the beginning, they don't want to walk through the whole thing. Well, that caused a problem, and the line wasn't efficient anymore. And so then they had people out into the lane, and that's a hazard. So they had 2 staff people, and they walked in and they tried to solve the problem, and they couldn't, because what they needed was they had to talk to the people and rearrange, make the people move in a different way. They came back and they gave up, and there was 2 of them. And I said, wait, I just saw you go back. So I was relaxing a little bit. I asked them, I said, do you mind if I try? And they're like, sure, knock yourself out. So I went in, I rearranged, I used the stall neck, the room neck, the lanes next to the airline, because there was another airline that used them. So I rerouted people, that way. It wasn't my job, but I love solving problems. And my daughter's with me. She's like, Dad, just stand in line. And I'm like, no, because this makes it better. And then people are like, are you an employee? I'm like, no. I said, well, thank you for helping us, because this was not very nice standing in the lane where everybody else was walking through. So anyway, just silly stuff like that. But and I know not everybody has the same personality, so I'm not saying we should all be a certain way, but anyway, solving problems is important, and I think the more that we can help kids find themselves and realize that it's really rewarding when you take responsibility for something and you come up with an idea, and especially if you can bring other people along with you. Like it's great to have ideas. You can still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So just the idea of holding ideas loosely is important to teach kids, because yes, you have a great idea, and if somebody says no, you don't worry about that. You'll have another idea, or find other people to make sure that the person who told you no, that if you hear no a couple more times, well, maybe you have to adjust your thing. And we've heard stories of people that wrote a book, right? And they went to 16 publishers, they all said no, and they finally found the one that said yes. It's kind of the same thing here. Just you come up with an idea, and if it's good, trust that the people around you will validate that. And if they say no, and you still believe in the idea, don't be obnoxious about it, but keep working the problem. And that's what led to some of the software solutions. There needed to be another way. And I said, well, I think we can. There was no flex time software. There was no eHall Pass software. And I actually developed 3 others for the district that were very niche, because I started getting good at this. Give me a problem, I'll come to you, and then I'll talk to 6 other teachers and 2 other principals and get their ideas, and then I'll pitch it again to you. And if you like it, great, let's develop it. If not, tell me where I went wrong, and we'll adjust it, and I'll bring it back to you. So it was just really thrilling to be in that kind of an environment. And I think what jazz is, there's fear involved, right? I'm sticking my neck out. I'm going to, I don't want to go to my principal. I don't want to be on their radar. I like what I'm doing. I heard teachers all the time say that, and there is some truth to that. Your life does go smoothly in some ways if you just, keep your neck down or head down and keep chugging along. But what is neat about sticking your neck out is that then you're part of the solution. And once you're part of the solution, you start seeing other solutions, and you start building capacity to make your organization and make the people you're working with, better and more efficient, more liberated, more freed, more happy, and that was thrilling for me. I really enjoyed that. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate how you draw a very clear line between just this idea of innovating in order to find a need, to solve a problem, to come up with a solution, and then solutions kind of breed other solutions, or you start to identify other problems that you have ideas to solve with those solutions. Just brilliant, and particularly with what we need right now. Where we are in this moment in history, all the things that are going on around us, that is absolutely critical. So I appreciate you just kind of drawing that line straight across. And one of the things that we like to do in our podcast episodes is talk kind of real next steps. And so if I'm listening and I either feel like I have an innovator spirit, or I'm inspired by how you've created businesses or how you've created solutions to problems, because that brought you joy. But what do I feel? What do you feel are some recommendations if I'm a listener and I'm either inspired or I feel like I share some of the same traits, maybe just not on the same scale as you? What do you recommend?
So I think being authentic is important. And so I know there are people who say, hey, I want to go into business and I want to make it big. They're typically not educators. Like, people who are educators, you don't go into education to get into the business world. That's not a natural leap. So the problems that you solve may or may not lead to business success, but they will lead to school success if they are good ideas. Good ideas rise to the top. At least they should in a good organization. And innovating may be economically advantageous to you, or it may just be organizationally or your constituent advantage. An advantage to your students. I think that's important to recognize. You have to just solve the problem for the joy of solving the problem and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
You don't want to be stupid about it either. I mean, you don't want to have a great idea and just give it away. But you also don't want to hoard it and make, it just wasn't my story. I did not do any of this to start a business. That's why I said I started the first one by accident. I was just solving problems, and part of my personality is to blow things up. Meaning, if my wife says, let's have over 2 friends, I'm thinking, oh, let's have 20. Whatever would it be like? And my wife said, no, just 2. That's just, innate in me, but that's authentic to me. I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. I think, I just think, so being authentic, and the other one is fear. Fear is, I heard somebody say recently, fear masquerades as wisdom, right? So, you have an idea, and then you have this fear, or you talk to somebody and they say, well, I don't know, maybe this could happen, or maybe that could happen. And so you think, oh, that's wisdom, right? I'm not going to do that. But it's just, it looks like wisdom, but it's false wisdom. And so you have to kind of process that. And I have an allergic reaction to fear. It's not something that I just, again, part of how I grew up and my personality. I know it's caused, it can cause some issues, right? Because if you don't have fear, you can end up butting heads with an administrator, or you can do certain things that just make you sort of obnoxious. So that's why it's good to have a team. It's good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and to not be rash about things. But that's another lesson I learned. But just be aware of fear, and find your way through fear in a way that matches you. Maybe it's you take a good idea and you give it to somebody who can make it happen, right? You're sort of innovating through the back door, and that's helpful. My first colleague, really, that I worked with, she said, yeah, I'll help you with this, but there's no way I want my name on this when it fails. So I was super happy to be able to tap. She had retired, and she was a tech coach. And she was just well respected. She knew all the people. But I had this crazy idea, and I said, if we could combine this crazy idea and your skill set and your knowledge of all the other tech innovators in the other districts, we could do something really great. She's like, okay, that's fine, but you're taking the heat. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do that. So that's another way of finding your path. So, but I get suspicious if you're trying to force it. Kids saying, hey, I want to be an NBA star, right? You have this idea and you think that that's the way it's going to go. And life rarely goes like my first career was going to be a UN translator, and I thought that would be cool, but that's not at all the direction my life took. My first teaching job, the principal didn't give me tenure. He said, maybe education's not for you and maybe you should find a different career. I'm like, I just got married. I just invested 4 years of my life. How is, that was really, so anyway, just the whole thing is forcing it, while it works for some people, like they can put a goal in their head and they can go after it, and that works for some. That's not my story. And for those that resonate with that, I say, just keep trying to make your life more authentic, your life more whole, because a whole person can be a better support to others, and then just hold what happens loosely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nathan, thank you so much on behalf of everyone who's tuning in and all of our educators. Just thank you. And VASCD would love to give you the opportunity to have a space to either share with us anything that you'd like to share, or if it's just simply how we can connect with you and become part of your learning and your innovation network.
So thank you very much. Can I talk just for maybe 2 minutes about eHall Pass? Because that's what we started with. And that's one of the things you mentioned. And I just want to give the audience a chance to hear what that is too. But I won't take up a lot of time. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed sharing, and you've taken me out of this world and placed me back into where a lot of my passions started. So I appreciate that. So eHall Pass is a digital hall pass that solves the old woodblock or paper pass system that is it's antiquated and it's very one-dimensional. And there's been no innovation in that. The most innovative we've gotten is we've laminated the hall pass, right? Or
yes.
Now, to be fair, in the last, since the pandemic or right before the pandemic, there were a few, there are schools who've tried QR codes with hall passes. And there are some free ways of trying to use a QR code, but you still run into the problem. It's very siloed. You don't get the information you need, and it doesn't have any bells and whistles, features that you really need. So what eHall Pass does is the kid creates a pass on their device. And they're the ones that does the work of creating the pass, which means the teacher isn't interrupted. So the kid doesn't say, hey, teacher, can you write me a pass? They just open up their device, whether it's their Chromebook or their laptop or whatever, and they write a pass. And then they hit enter. And when they submit that pass request, the pass doesn't go directly to the teacher. It goes to the principal, the eHall Pass Control Center, where the principal has a whole bunch of controls that they can use that are modern 21st century controls that for the first time allows them to control hall traffic in the ways they've always wanted or resonate with completely when they see it. So the first control we give the principal is, hey, you could set a limit of how many kids you want to be in the hall at a time. Like maybe you don't want more than 25 kids in the hall, or maybe you don't want more than 6 kids in the hall, whatever that number is that makes sense. You can set that. So when I'm in the classroom as a kid and I submit my pass request, since it doesn't go directly to the teacher, it goes to that principal control center, and the system says, hey, you're pass number 7. Like you'd be the 7th kid in the hall. Well, the system will shut the student down, and the system will tell the kid, sorry, the hall is busy. Try again later. Well, the hall being busy kind of blows a kid's mind. But that's the kind of thing that teachers have wanted. They want to slow traffic down. They want it to make more sense. And making an all call saying, principals don't do that, but at the faculty meeting they'll say, hey, we have way too many kids in the hall. Write fewer passes. Well, that's not really effective either. That's not one, you can't measure it. You have no idea if your faculty is really abiding by it. You get anecdotal, you can observe. Anyway, so that's one control, is the room control, the building control. The second control that a principal can have is, hey, that bathroom, I only want to allow 2 kids to the bathroom, bathroom 205, bathroom 102, I'm allowing 1 kid at a time. And in the bathroom by the main office, I won't put any controls on it because I don't mind, because nobody does anything across from the principal's office, the main office. So, but that gives, again, principals the control of managing how many kids are hanging out, because often kids hang out in bathrooms and you've got 5 kids or 7 kids there that you don't want. Well, now you walk in and you can easily, see who was supposed to be there and who's not supposed to be there. And ideally, you prevent kids from meeting up there because they're not allowed to go there. They have to go somewhere else. Now, does that stop kids from saying that they're going to the library, quote unquote, or they're going to, bathroom 102 and they really go to bathroom 205? It doesn't stop them from doing that. But I'm going to use the word bustable. They're more bustable because you walk into the bathroom and you're expecting to see 2 kids in that bathroom, and now you see 5. Well, 3 of them, you're gonna walk out right away. There's no argument. There's no, well, I have a bathroom pass. Yeah, but I don't think that's to this bathroom, right? Because it's the wrong color or whatever. And with the laminated passes, the paper passes, those are the issues principals have. And then they're like, well, it's just too much bother. Or they realize that they're in for a half an hour of trying to sort out the details of who is supposed to be where. With eHall Pass, it's instant. The third control, I won't mention all of them, but the third control is really a principal favorite. You can keep Romeo and Juliet from being in the hall together, or you can keep Bonnie and Clyde, or Tom and Jerry from being in the hall. Schools have, these situations all the time. And what you do is you can look at it data-wise. Like if a teacher comes to a principal and says, hey, Susie and Jack they're always in the hall together. Really? Let me check. And within 30 seconds or less, they can type in Jack's name and find out, oh, Susie has been in the hall 8 times in the last 5 days, with overlapping with Jack. Like, that's the level of detail you get in an instant. Well, now a principal can say, cool, I now for the first time ever have a way of keeping 2 kids from being in the hall at the same time, because it's data driven. It's not anecdotal. I look at my data and I say, Jack and Susie have been in the hall 20 times, or well, hopefully not 20, but whatever the number is. My threshold is 5, and therefore I'm going to put them on a contact control list. And so when I'm in that classroom submitting that pass, and I'm Jack or whatever was I saying, Jack and Susie, I can't remember the 2 names I was using, but if I'm submitting my pass, the system says, oh, well, you clear the building level, right? You're under the building limit, so fine, you can go there. And the room that you want to go to, okay, you're under that limit, but I see that there's a name under the contact control. It's Susie, and Susie happens to be in the hall, so therefore we're going to deny you from going in the hall because you can't be in the hall at the same time. All this is happening by the system, not the teacher, which is also great for teachers, right? Because the conflict is not the teacher not letting me, it's the school or the principal team, which that's what they're there for, right? They're there to organize the way school runs, and they're the right bad guy in this situation. But so those are some cool features. But if you pass all of those, then the kid gets the pass request on their device. They raise their hand and say, hey, teacher, can you approve my pass? And then there are 5 ways that the teacher can approve the pass. They can do it from their laptop. They can do it from their phone. They can even do it from the kid's device. They can write the pass for the kid. There's a lot more I could tell, but I just want to get that in, because eHall Pass really is for our sort of post, before COVID, eHall Pass was in demand because of, 1, it was more modern, but 2, there was vaping, a lot of vaping issues, and they still exist. Then during COVID, eHall Pass grew because of the ability to social distance, to keep the traffic down in the hall. After COVID, this fall, there was a big TikTok challenge going around with vandalism in the bathroom, and so that drove a lot of principals to us, and so just there now is over the last 5-6 years, there's just growing expectation that yes, we need a modern way to control hall traffic, and so they come looking for eHall Pass, and just it's a great solution, and principals when we see them, for example, at VASCD, when we were there, there are educators that come by the booth. We tell them what it is, and it's fun. Their jaw drops, or they go, "No way," or they laugh. We say, "Do you have any frequent flyers?" They're like, "Yeah, we've got frequent flyers." Or they say they're middle school, and I say, "Well, you don't have any hall issues, do they?" Like, "What are you talking about?" And then they're imagining what they imagine as an e-hall pass. They can't even. They're often not even in the right frame of mind. So we have to explain to them, in just like I did here, in 4 or 5 minutes. And then they're like, they're like, well, we need this. This totally makes sense in this day and age. Why would we not? And so that's been the fun part about creating some of these solutions, is that you're talking you're almost sharing it to the choir, right? The choir wants to sing. Like they want to be on the same sheet of music. They just don't have the sheet of music, and you're providing them with the music. Like, oh, this is perfect. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nathan. Two really big time solutions to real problems that our schools are facing as we speak. I mean, I just left a school to take this job, and both things, the flex time manager and e-hall pass, would have been two really great solutions for me to have in my toolkit. So shame on me for not having the foresight to reach out to EduSpire prior to the need. And so hopefully maybe between this podcast or us working together as partners and us getting the word out and your brand and logo and your marketing and what that offers, hopefully more will come to you recognizing, wow, this is a solution to a definite problem that I have.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I enjoy this. You got me talking, like I said, and I went long, I know, but it was.
No, it's
fun.
good. I was captivated the whole time, Nathan, and I'm sure that our listeners will be as well. So thank you so much for taking the time. Safe travels back, and I hope the rest of your stay remains as calm and as smooth as it seems it has been so far.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.